So, exactly what sort of language is JavaScript and what's it used for? Well, in this course, I'm going to be showing you how JavaScript can be used to bring your web pages alive. Web pages are just defined using HTML, Hypertext Markup Language, which causes the various elements of the page, the text and the graphics and the tables, to be formatted and displayed in the web browser. But JavaScript can bring those pages to life. For example, you may have seen all over the web when you pass a mouse pointer over a button, the button will change colour or a new graphic will be displayed. Another example is sometimes when you enter an email address and you want that email address to be verified. Is it a correct format for an email address? Has it got the @ sign in the middle, and so on? And JavaScript can implement both that type of operation, both a graphic operation in response to, for example, a mouse movement, and it can use programming logic to check that people have entered some valid data. Those are two simple examples of the sort of thing JavaScript can do, but JavaScript could do much more complicated things. It could, for example, create, and it is used to create, online games and other things which create a sort of a high level of interaction between the program running in the web browser and the end user. Now, as I've said, JavaScript can be embedded directly into the HTML in the web page. It can also be stored in a separate file. And when the web page requires the programming logic of the JavaScript, it can load up that JavaScript from the separate file and execute the program. And I'll be explaining later in the course how to do both that type of programming, JavaScript embedded in HTML or JavaScript loaded from a separate file, and why you might want to do one or the other. Now, let me say a little bit about the language itself. If you've never done programming before, don't worry, I'm going to explain all you need to know to get up and running with JavaScript. If you've done some programming, and especially if you've done some programming in a C-like language, such as, well, C++ or C# or Java, then you'll be off to a head start, because the syntax of JavaScript is in many respects quite similar to those languages. You see lots of curly braces and some of the ways that you control the program with loops to loop through collections of items and so on. The syntax will be very similar to the syntax in other C-like languages. If you haven't done any programming, that's not a problem. I'm going to explain all the syntax that you'll need. Another thing that you need to bear in mind is that JavaScript is case sensitive. So if you have a piece of JavaScript code and it says, for example, document.write, which is a way of placing some text into a page and displaying it using JavaScript, you will notice that I've written here document with a small d, write with a small w, and you have to adopt that convention of writing. If you mix the letters and put uppercase letters where JavaScript requires lowercase letters or vice versa, your code won't run. So that's something to bear in mind, that it's very important to pay close attention to the case, whether you mix uppercase or lowercase letters. But what about Java? Now, a lot of people coming to JavaScript for the first time assume that JavaScript must be somehow closely related to the Java language. Now, well, it isn't. The simple fact is they're two completely different languages. Well, I say completely different. There are some similarities. The similarities are, as I've just mentioned, in the syntax. They're both developed in a way, in a line of languages that use a C-like syntax. So some of the way that code is written, some of the way that you use braces, and the way that you write certain control structures in the programs will be similar. But there the similarity ends. JavaScript is a scripting language. It's a language that's executed as required. It's interpreted, in other words, and it's used as a relatively lightweight language to build in interactivity into your websites. Java, on the other hand, is a more complicated language, and it's a general purpose programming language. And Java is used to create, well, it can be used to create enormous applications, standalone applications if necessary, across platforms, so that they can be run on Windows and Linux and on the Mac and so on. So in this course, I am not dealing at all with Java. Java is a completely different language. I am dealing with JavaScript, And that's the language that we'll be using to bring alive your websites. And with that, it's time to move on to the next lesson and really get started with JavaScript programming. Learn programming and the business of programming at www.bitwisecourses.com.